Good afternoon and welcome back to the Same Business, Different Day podcast. We are happy to be back for season 2. In our recap of season 1, you can tell just how special we thought every episode of last season was, and they were. Mm-hmm. And this season is going to be even better. I think that we're getting off to a great start. First, I want to intro Alyssa, hello, my awesome co-host.
You know, Zeke, I know we're getting off to a good start.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We absolutely are. As always, here on the Same Business, Different Day podcast, we seek to inspire young entrepreneurs because although there is nothing wrong with 9-to-5 work, there is nothing better than to be able to take business into your own hands. At an early age, we might not know exactly what that looks like. And for some, we still don't know into our adult years. But don't be discouraged. The stories that we hear from our guests on this podcast will teach you once again that we have more in common than we have differences. Our guest today has already lived a heck of a life. And as young as he looks, the story is far from over. We've had many great guests with fascinating stories, but maybe none of those stories have been like the one we will hear from today's guest. Mr. Shane Paul, welcome to the Same Business, Different Day podcast.
You know, it's funny, you changed your intro from last season. Uh-huh. And I used to work for the man all those years, like over 25 years. Now I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm only a new entrepreneur.
Well, you're right on time.
I know.
Let's talk about the rules of the show. Listen, please.
Yes, we have some rules on this show. We are Same Business, Different Day. You're talking about entrepreneurship and business. We're going to talk about what you do, Shane. But first, we're going to talk about you. So we'll reveal your business when it feels right. But before then, don't worry about it. Just let us get to know you.
And you can edit this out later, but if I'm horrible, and, just go ahead and cut the whole thing.
No. You'll surprise yourself, I think.
No pressure. No pressure.
As we approach our big business reveal, there's so many stages of your life. And in particular, let's start with the early memories. Do you know what you wanted to be when you grew up? Those kind of things. Do you have those memories? Did you have aspirations?
I knew who I wanted to be at a very young age. I wanted to be a banker.
Oh, really?
And this shows my age. Yes, I'm not as young as I may look. I'm 52. Uh-huh. I Love Lucy show that had Mr. Mooney, the banker. I don't know if you guys ever saw I Love Lucy.
Yes.
Uh-huh. But I saw him. I want to be a banker.
Oh, okay.
So I ended up finance. I ended up getting a finance degree.
Okay.
But yeah, I want to be a banker.
That was at the University of Ohio?
Florida A&M.
Florida
my
A&M.
MBA is in finance.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
FAMU in the house. Rattlers.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Where did you grow up, though?
Ohio. So born and raised in Ohio. Mm-hmm. I would tell you it wasn't fun necessarily because I grew up with I'm mixed. I grew up the white side of my family. So I had a twin brother who I also since passed, but it was like we had a family reunion with like 50 white people and then us 2 black kids there. So my high school was like 6 black kids out of 1,300. So that's what it sucked. But other than that, very nice. So.
Okay.
Did you have any mentors growing up?
If anybody's successful, I think you have a lot. Mentors. For me, I would say where I learned the most is probably the military. Nobody in my family ever went to college. So my mom signed my brother and I. We did it's a special program. So between junior and senior year of high school, we went to basic training, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. I was 17, and it was horrible. I just, you're a junior out of high school. I did that. Then I did my advanced training between graduation and starting college. So I never missed any school, but I had everything done for the Army National Guard. I was a water purification expert. Then I went to ROTC, got my commission, and I retired after 24 years, 11 months, 17 days.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thanks for what you've done for our country, of course. Now, leadership training, I guess, it began in the military for you, or did you have jobs before that?
My first job ever was McDonald's.
Really?
Yeah, I was worked at McDonald's when I was 16. I quit to go on a vacation. Mm-hmm. Then I came back. There was a steakhouse back in the day called Ponderosa. I think it's still around.
Okay.
That was the first job I ever got fired.
This was in Ohio.
In Ohio.
And you got fired. Did you expect it?
No, I didn't. I worked hard, so it was just a surprise. So yeah, to be fired when you're 17, it was a surprise.
Okay.
But it is what it is.
We've all been fired from a couple of jobs here or there, right? I've been fired. My dad helped me get a job once, and when they had to fire me, they called him.
That's good. It takes it out for a little bit, unless he yells at you.
You know, I haven't been fired.
No?
Yeah.
Everyone tells me everyone gets fired. I'm dreading. I'm like, oh God, when am I going to get fired?
It happens. You might even fire yourself. One of these days, we should all have that experience. It's one of the many experiences.
That's part
we
of
have.
my story. That's how I got to where I'm at to become an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
I decided
There you
to
go.
sort of fire myself.
Tell us more about the military, though. That what you learned there, the leadership, and more. I'm sure.
So it's interesting. I moved a lot for college, for career opportunities. So I served in 5 different states for the Army National Guard. Some of the notable things: I was at Hurricane Katrina.
Mm-hmm.
I was at. I went to the World Trade Center attacks the next day. So I was a night shift battle captain in New York, and then I also did Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
So. Those are some of the big ones I did.
What made you join? I mean, was it something in your
college.
family?
I had no
to
choice.
pay for college.
No choice. My mom made us join, and I paid for college. We got
Your
a
mom
degree.
made you join.
Yeah, she
You and
knew-
your twin brother.
Yeah. We
Okay.
had no money. We had no money to pay for it. So she signed us up. She just said, hey, this summer you're going to go to basic training. And I was so pissed. It was just.
Really?
Yeah.
So-
Pissed is a bad word. You can edit that. But yeah, I was pissed. And then I did it. And it was tough when you're 17. I don't know. What was that? Oh, the song Rumors by Timex Social Club.
Yeah.
I remember coming back from basic training and hearing it. I was like, this is a great song. And my buddy Steve was like, this is an old song. It's about to go off the radio. It's, this started at the beginning of the summer. And I felt like I missed an entire lifetime in summer being away to. Plus, I had to ride a bus, Greyhound bus, with my brother all the way from Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri to Ohio, which was horrible. The dregs of society talking to 17-year-old kids on a bus today would be outlawed.
Chance to learn something.
Yeah. Nice. We'll use that on the next podcast. We'll talk about that.
You got a bronze medal for your work in Afghanistan.
A Bronze Star, yeah.
Star.
I got a Bronze
My
Star.
apologies.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't kill anybody to get it. Usually you do, but I did a lot of things to help the unit. So
Excellent.
yeah, Bronze Star. Yeah. So small, interesting story. In all my restaurants, when I just told what I do. I'm sorry, I'm getting fired.
No, you're good. You're good.
So they didn't have a military discount. So I put in a military, and I put a picture of me getting my Bronze Star, and the guy give it to me is General Austin. So he's now the Secretary of Defense. So in every one of my restaurants you come into, you see a picture of the current Secretary of Defense giving me my medal. And it's odd because people say 2 things, like, that can't be you. He's so young and he's so thin. But yeah, that's
That's not cool. How is that a funny story? You're not saying good things about yourself, man. You got a Bronze Star.
The Secretary of Defense is my homie now.
That's
There
cool.
you go.
That's
That's
cool.
the story.
That's cool. What we're gonna do is we're gonna do the reveal since we got ahead of ourselves, and we're gonna
I'm
make
so
sure that we
sorry.
don't. No,
You have nothing to
were
apologize for.
You were okay. You were okay. I thought we were foreshadowing, but we're gonna get into it now. A king of burgers, but no Burger King. Shane Paul is the owner of 7 Jack in the Box franchises. Not only is he an owner, but has trained franchisees on running a successful Jack in the Box franchise.
Established in 2013, Mermaid Valley Vineyard is a boutique winery located in the Ramona Valley AVA. Nestled amongst the mountains just outside of San Diego, Mermaid Valley has abundant sunshine and cooling coastal breezes, making it an ideal location to produce fine wines. We offer estate-produced white, rosé, and red wines. Come out to Ramona and taste the fine wines at Mermaid Valley Vineyards for yourself. Open by appointment at 760-315-9011 or email at mermaidvineyard@gmail.com.
The Same Business Different Day podcast is brought to you by YourInsurancePlace.com. YourInsurancePlace.com is a conglomeration of 2 agencies, Network One Insurance and Bill Corley Insurance Agency. Their property and casualty agents and brokers specialize in commercial insurance of all types, general liability, workers' compensation, professional liability, auto, agribusiness, and much more. They also have great insurance carriers for your homes and autos. How do I know they are that good? Because I'm one of the agents. We believe in ourselves, and you will too. Contact us at yourinsuranceplace.com or call us direct at 866-384-0479. That's yourinsuranceplace.com. And that's something that I'm very interested in understanding. So you actually did some training with that. You taught people how to run a franchise. Is that correct?
That's part of it, yeah. So
Tell me more, please.
So how I started Jack in the Box, I've worked at McDonald's, Burger King, and for our industry, when you do the franchise side, either you run company ops restaurants or you do like franchise consulting. So I did both sides of the business. And Jack hired me to come out, and we had just franchised a bunch of restaurants. We didn't feel we were a strong franchisor. So they hired me to try and help train our consultants and all that. So my initial job was working with the consultants who work with franchisees. But as I grew in different positions, I was a guy who approved or on a board of people, new franchisees, and also worked with making their training. So I wouldn't necessarily go to the restaurant and train them, but we'd set up the training restaurants. Yeah. I'd visit them, talk to them, make sure it's good, and then put them into business.
Well, what's that process like? Just deciding on who's a good franchisee, who looks good to be doing something like that?
My record was, I think, 31-3. So when you miss, it's very painful. So if you want to be a franchisee, so even taking Jack in the Box out for any franchise business, essentially the first thing you do is a couple of things. You have to pass, of course, the background check, and they look for certain financial qualifications, and then they look at what's your background. Like, so for example, for a Jack in the Box, a McDonald's, a Burger King, they want to see what they call 5 years or greater of multi-unit experience. So you have run several restaurants for several years. Even if you didn't own them, you could be working for McDonald's, apply at Jack in the Box and become a franchisee because they want to make sure you know how to run the restaurants. I started a program called the Second Generation. So I'm going to meet all these franchisees. So at one point, so at the very height of my career, I oversaw about $2 billion of Jack in the Box. So I had $1.5 billion on the franchise side, and I had 8 consultants that dealt with about 70 franchisees. And then I had $500 million and 7,000 employees of company ops. So I ran all the company ops in California and Arizona, and West Coast. I was West Coast. So I'm going out to visit these franchisees, and they would say, "How old are you, Alyssa?"
I'm 29.
29. Mm-hmm. So they would refer to you as the kid. And I'm like, they're 29. They're not a kid, right?
Thank you.
You have a college degree. Yeah. Sometimes they have an MBA. Like one lady had a UCLA MBA. And referring to her, I think they still wanted to live at home. It was funny. And so we started training them. So I set up a training program, and we had about 10 or 12 the first class, and by the time we got to class 6, which was graduation, we had 32. 32 kids whose parents or grandparents or relatives, and they're working in the business. And before we started the program, one person, Kevin, became a franchisee before I started that in the 3 years before I got there. Once we started that, we had 16, 17 franchisees in the next 3 years that were all, their parents brought them in and they started buying out the parents. And so it was a very successful program. But when you talk about the monopoly, really the new blood we've gotten is from the younger generation. My son just started working full-time for us about 5 weeks ago.
Okay.
He's an assistant manager in Lemon Grove. Hi, Simeon.
Shout out, Simeon.
Yeah. So he'll one day want to take over. Maybe my daughter. She works for me also. She's a 16-year-old cashier at Arrow Drive. So we'll see. But
okay,
yeah,
I think that's super cool, and it needs to not be understated. We're talking about somebody who owns 7 Jack in the Boxes right now. So many of our listeners, they think about investing, right? They think about starting their own business, and they worry about if their idea of a ground up business can be successful, right? So many people are thinking about starting their own thing. Do I have the right idea? Can this, happen? And they don't understand that purchasing a franchise can be a better option for them. Some of them, right? Not everybody. Some of you might want to do it different ways, or some of you might just get pushed out of the way by the 95% of the current owners of Jack in the Box or whatever franchise that it is that you're looking for. But we haven't discussed this as an option in our platform.
I'm your first one.
Exactly. Exactly. So
but not last.
What's that like, working for an established business model, right? All the advertising is already done for you. I mean, what are some of the basics of starting a franchise?
It's funny because there's pros and cons, right? So I would tell you I've already drank the Kool-Aid and believe in the franchise model because a couple of things, there's a benefit there. If you're out there wondering, should I do it or not? One, believe it or not, the hardest thing is the financing. Do you have the money to do it? And if you don't, banks are more likely to invest in something with a proven cash flow, a proven and franchise. So that's one of the benefits you get there. Plus, a lot of the brands will train you. So unless you're a chef who's going to be a great restaurateur, You don't necessarily know what you don't know, and there's different aspects of the business. You know, cooking is one part if you're the chef, but making the money, the lease negotiation, all those things. So one of the advantages for most franchises, as you come in, a lot of that stuff's off the table. Really, your job is to take the risk, and that's the biggest thing. You're taking the risk of the business on, and then you have to meet the standards of that business, and you are held accountable. We have inspections. We have food safety inspections, every single restaurant, 3 times a year, unannounced, where this guy's just coming in, showing a badge, and he's going to check everything out. And that's above and beyond the health inspections from San Diego County. And then you also have operations inspections where they come in and make sure you're meeting brand standards, things are repaired. Electronically, they can monitor and see if you have everybody trained, because we have an online training platform. So when you talk about a franchise, really the benefit that you get is it's established. And that's why you see so many franchises in America. And a lot of people think of restaurants like a McDonald's or Burger King, but they have franchise maid services, home health care, automotive, so many different things are franchised because it's just cheaper to buy into something. Now you're going to say, well, how much does it cost? And most you charge a royalty. So for every dollar you make, you pay anywhere from 3 to 5. And Jack in the Box, it's 5. And I think McDonald's is 5 too. So 5 cents of every dollar, whether you make money or not, you have to pay to the brand. And it's usually a 10, 20, 30-year commitment. So even if I start like in the pandemic, March, April last year, I lost a ton of money. I still had to pay Jack in the Box, or 5 cents of every dollar that I brought in, even though I lost money.
Okay.
There's no...
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm a fan of the franchise.
The plan is the plan. But you drank the Kool-Aid anyway, so you were paying.
Yeah, I was in, Well, I think a lot of business owners got nervous back during the beginning of the pandemic.
Agreed.
But, luckily, so can I tell how I got started? Is that
Please.
okay? I don't want to...
Please.
That's what we're here for.
So I am a franchisee out of anger. I always tell this story. I tell it 100 times.
Okay.
I reported to the president, and again, I'm running $2 billion. And she's like, I couldn't do the job without you. And of course, there's a couple of things I could do better, but I'm hearing the whole performance of you. And I just sat there and I was like, I'm never getting promoted. Because I wanted to be the chief operating officer. And they didn't see me as it. And, it's nice now that I'm out for several years. I can see there's reasons why I wasn't the guy to be chief operating officer. So I was like, hey, can I just be a franchisee? We're getting ready to hug at the end of the and I said, before we hug, I'll pretend you're Francis. Can I just be a franchisee? And she's like, where did that come from? And I was like, well, maybe it's time. She's like, well, do you have the money? And I said, actually, I don't. But I'll find the money. Just word for word, I'll find the money. So if you can find the money, we'll talk about getting a deal. So I knew who all the franchisees were, and I picked, probably the top 30 that could do it. And then I picked the ones I really liked, and then I narrowed it down to 10 people. And it turns out I was going to a baseball game with the son, their mother, father, son group. And he and I were going to an Angels game, and we always were very good friends. I've been to his house. We went out with wives, even though I was corporate, he's a franchise. And he was driving me home from the Angels game back to my hotel. So we're getting in the car. I said, hey, you guys made Tim a franchisee. What was the deal? Because it's franchising. The other thing is the deal structure. With any business you have, the structure of the deal is very important. And I said, well, tell me
Say that again. With any business you have.
With any business you have, the structure of the deal is very important. And by structure, for those who don't know what that means, it's your debt, your ownership, what are the obligations, where the money is coming from, cash on hand, all that. The structure of the deal is very important. So he explained it, and I was like, can I have that same deal? And word for word, this is what happens. He said, well, how many restaurants? And we were selling restaurants at the time, and I'd seen all this. I call them secret maps. I was on a secret team that we were saying which franchise you'd get them, and I knew a couple places we hadn't assigned restaurants. So I said, I'm not sure. It could be San Diego, Arizona, Northern California. And he said, well, how many? And I said, well, if it's a package I would like to have, it would be up to 12. But I don't know how many restaurants. He said, well, how much do you need? And I won't say the number on air, but it's millions of dollars. It's a lot.
Sure.
And so he looks at me, and he actually we're at a light, and he looked at me, and he said, so you don't know where they're at, you don't know how many, and you want us to give you millions of dollars. And I was like, yes. And he said, we're in.
Oh, wow.
6 weeks later, I was a franchisee.
Wow, what a great story.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't know if that's a story or a really good salesperson.
Well, there's two things I tell about that story.
Yeah.
The one part I would never do again, but the one part when I taught, it's about credibility. He didn't give it to me because I was his friend. When you do millions, you're betting that it's a sure bet.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it's the credibility of me working with them, and even since then, I've been working probably 70 to 80 hours a week for the last 3 years, even though we're one of the better franchisees.
You saw your work ethic too.
Okay.
You can back it up.
Now, the downside, when you talk about structure, is we did 100% equity. So when you talk about 100%, we took loans. So I didn't have to pay money, but we borrowed a ton. And I always, nothing against those in banking, I refer to them as the mafia. They don't care whether you're doing good or bad. They don't care whether you're making, they have a note that they want. And if they don't get that note, you have loan covenants. That's a term, loan covenants. And they do ratios on your financials. So if you're not hitting certain numbers, they can actually jack it. So think of like your credit card. If you don't pay on time, they could take you from 16% interest to 25. You miss another payment or two, you go from 25 to 30. For a bank loan, it's very similar, but you're still paying. Like you could be paying every month, but they're like, well, you don't hit the ratio, we're going to raise. You're missing your bank covenants. Almost like you didn't pay, but you're still paying, which is sort of funny. So in
It's
an
not funny.
Yeah, it's not. So in an all equity deal, like, so March, April, when I lost, I think the 2 months combined, maybe lost $100,000 in one of those months alone. I still had to pay it. The bank wanted money. Jack in the Box deferred it, pushed it out for the royalties, but you still have to pay the bill. So having your own business and being a franchise, there's pros and cons. When it's not going well, you're on the hook. What's nice if you're not franchise and your own business owner, you've negotiated the lease, you're in a lot more control. You don't have to pay royalties oftentimes. And the structure is probably a lot different. You probably didn't borrow millions of dollars with very little equity down. So when the notes you have to pay off aren't aside and the bank isn't there putting the pressure on. So sorry if I geek out.
No, this is awesome.
I love it.
No,
Yeah,
this is knowledge. I hope everybody was taking notes on this. Obviously, you can just rewind. That's the good thing. It's not like radio. You can actually just hit that 15-second back button. But that's knowledge right there. And that's very important banking information right there.
It really is.
Yeah.
So the other thing I'll tell you, because people always want to know, so Shane, I want to buy a Jack in the Box, a McDonald's, a Burger King. How much is it? I get that question all the time. And it's actually not that hard. So one of the things, and the official term is EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. I always use unofficial terms like just the money you would make, like net income or cash flow, things you would understand. How much money is it making? And for many of the cash flowing business, even if it's a laundromat, if you know how much money is coming in every month or year, it's a multiple for that business. So for Jack in the Box, for example, I think we're about a 6 multiple. So if you have a restaurant that's making $100,000, you would pay six times that, or you pay $600,000 for that restaurant. And you typically can get a bank loan. They would, depending on your background and your structure, you can get a bank loan for that. As much as 70%. Again, in our case, we did 100. We had a lot of. My partners have been in 53 years in Jack in the Box, and our partnership group has a Denny's and 28 total Jack in the Boxes now. But they had like 15 with no debt. Her house had no debt. It's a stunning house. I love you, Karen. That's one of my partners. So the mom and dad are 76 and 78. Their son, who's my friend, he's 56 now, and he has been a franchisee 32 years. So they just have been around a long time. So that helped us finance and do the structure a lot differently. But when you buy the restaurant and you do that multiple, you can oftentimes at least have to pay down 25%, depending on your background, sometimes up to 50%, and the rest you can borrow. So when you hear $600,000, it's not that you have to have $600,000 cash.
Right.
You might only need $100,000 or $200,000, and then you need what everybody probably knows is working capital. The day you open, you still got to pay some bills and do all that. So you have to have some money in the bank to do all that.
Yeah. So
to buy a Jack in the Box right now, the average Jack in the Box is probably doing about $1.7 million. They probably are $200,000 to $250,000. So if you want to, that's the other thing that changed. If you could pick your restaurant 4 years ago, you might want something cool like a Fleming's, right? Like I'd love to own a prime steakhouse. Never would you thought owning what we call quick service restaurant, QSR, a business with a drive-through is so hot. So I actually lied to you a minute ago. I said the multiple 6. Some multiples up to 7 and 8 for drive-through restaurants right now. So that restaurant that you wanted to buy before the pandemic, you could have got it for $600,000, is now closer to $750,000, $800,000.
okay.
Wow.
Because most, and this is public, you can almost go to any brand and look at their financial disclosures that they're putting out there. Most drive-through restaurants are up in sales. And it's sad because the restaurant industry as a whole, we're really hurting right now. The dining shut down, indoor and all that. Most of my restaurants are 92% drive-through right now, and we're up double digits.
I bet.
We're killing it.
Yeah.
So it's been nice. Not just Jack in the Box, but McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, all those too.
It's okay. You can call it Jack. I know you're on a first name basis.
Hi, I'm Jeff Fox, founder of StarFox Media. We're a digital marketing and video production company that focuses on serving small businesses here in Vista, California. We have the team and all of the equipment necessary to produce, film, edit, and distribute your podcast to as many people as possible. For more information, you can reach out to us via email at info@starfox.media or give us a call at 760-385-3117. Let StarFox Media help you tell your brand story today.
The Vista Chamber of Commerce is a proud supporter of the Same Business, Different Day podcast. We support our business members with promotion and marketing, business referrals, educational opportunities, workforce development, and advocacy. Check us out online at vistachamber.org.
I heard you say Jack. You know, I called Mac.
I don't want to get in trouble for this.
I called King.
But the guy who wears the Jack in the Box costume,
Oh, please tell me
he
about
has
him.
done hundreds of our commercials. Same guy, 15 years. I got drunk with him once at Disneyland.
That's
But what's the
beautiful.
one here, Disney World or Disneyland?
Disneyland.
Land. He and I got drunk at Disneyland.
We can tell you
I
travel
hope he
a
was
little
wearing the.
No, he was not. But it's funny. We're coming
bit. How are
down.
you going to drink through that? Unless, what are you talking
Well,
about?
no
How
one
big is
knows
the
who.
straw?
Yeah, right. Yeah, no one knows who he is actually. So we get in the elevator because I just saw him in there and I waved, and these two managers get on. I'm like, I wish I could meet Jack without his mask on, and he looked at me like, and we knew, but he doesn't want people to know because
Sure.
No, I want to meet Jack with his mask.
You want to know? Well, see, that's what's crazy. If you ever go to a Jack in the Box conference or big meeting, we actually pay to have him come. Like, you can have him come here. It's
Come on, that's the
$15,000.
same guy.
Yeah.
It could be anybody.
No,
Yeah.
he's specially trained because the head weighs a lot. And here's another.
He's specially trained.
Yeah, you have to
I'm
be.
gonna
So
let people every time
I
they see a
love this.
commercial, I'm like, you
I
know,
love
he's
this.
specially trained.
Give me
well,
more.
the other
Tell
thing
me
is,
more.
there's no eyes there necessarily. It's a camera through the nose.
Oh.
So there was a first pitch that Jack threw out at the Dodgers game probably 5 or 6 years ago, and they actually had, it was one of my employees who ended up getting, he was a pitcher in college, but they brought out 5 or 6 different pitchers, and they had to put it on the head, and it's hilarious because like if I'm throwing to you, it's going over there because the camera. You have to sort of close your eyes and throw.
I see,
And
I
so
see.
that was one of the only times I know of that Jack wasn't actually Jack because Jack couldn't make that throw. One, it's from the mound to catcher is a long throw, but the ability to throw and
You
sort
have
of
to
close.
be looking at the catcher.
So yeah, plus in his contract, he can only have it on for 30 minutes because it's very hot. So I know
his
personally
contract,
talking
okay.
to Jack. Oh yeah.
I
He's
know
under
people who
contract.
get hired that'll wear it for 3 days.
I know. Well, because he gets very angry if it's like 35, 40 minutes because he's burning up in there and it's
sweating.
heavy and it's
Yeah.
all that.
I
so
bet. I bet.
I'm sorry if I get in trouble.
That's
No, the
okay.
first
that, Jack.
that's
Oh,
all
well.
right. That's all
We
right.
can't
What were you
complain.
guys drinking? What does he drink?
It was a rough night. That was yeah.
It's Jack. You don't mess with
So,
Jack.
Yeah.
So I was doing sort of a deep dive into Jack in the Box history, which turned into a deep dive into fast food history, things that I
Oh yeah, it
didn't
was a
know.
deep dive.
But I learned something I didn't know was that Jack in the Box started in San Diego. I was blown away.
Yeah,
No idea.
Balboa Avenue is where the headquarters. We're actually building behind it now. We sold the main headquarters to San Diego Education like a year ago or half a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why we moved here. So my wife, if I can say something about me, I love you, Sylvia.
Shout out to Sylvia.
We've been married 22 years, coming up on 23,
Excellent.
and this is our 5th state. So we moved here specifically for Jack in the Box. The last stop was North Carolina. But
there are Jack in the Box. Jack in the Boxes everywhere.
Everywhere.
I'm sorry, I don't know how you guys say that, but there are Jacks everywhere, right? So you didn't have to move here, but
I
you
did.
specifically, this was the spot.
Well, the headquarters is here, so I had to move.
You moved here for the
I work at
headquarters.
the
That's right. You were
headquarters.
working. That's right. I'm sorry.
But we're only in 22 states and 1 territory. We're not in all 50 states.
Only. That's still 22.
No, 22.
That's a
But
lot.
that's great, though.
So
I mean,
for my Jack in the Box friends, I make fun of us sometimes because we feel like we're a national brand. But
Listen.
we're not. We're actually regional. So one interesting stat, in our top 10 markets, we're number 2 behind McDonald's. So if you live in San Diego, LA, you feel like Jack in the Box is the brand.
It's everywhere.
Sure.
It's on
Yeah.
commercial. But
Sure.
in reality, as you go to Dayton, Ohio, they've never heard of Jack in the
and
Box.
you'll never see a commercial or anything, right?
Okay.
I had no idea. Tell
Yeah.
me more states. What other states do it?
I flew in to California having never eaten at a Jack in the Box.
Okay.
And I got in Ray saved me. He was a lawyer, it was a panel. And the lady was like, "So did you eat Jack?" I said, "Yeah, I tried In-N-Out last night because I never had In-N-Out."
That's what most people go to, right?
And I never had Jack in the Box. She said, "Who did better last night?" And I said, "Well, obviously I love Jack, but the In-N-Out experience was better." And she was so mad. And Ray, Ray, literally the lawyer, stepped in and was like, "You did ask him a question. He gave you an honest answer. That can't hurt him."
You got saved.
Yeah, he did save me. It really, I mean, if you've ever been in an interview, don't torpedo it.
No.
That was saying Jack in the Box was not better. So, yeah.
Okay.
That's all right. No, that's I really appreciate that education. First of all, the financial education, but also just about the business. I definitely had no idea. And actually, that Jack in the Box on Arrow Drive is right around the corner from my old office.
Right.
So what came first, though? You gotta give us the knowledge: the toy or the restaurant.
I hate this question.
Listen, I grew up on the toy. I had no idea. We called that a Jack in the Box.
So I have the easy answer. People ask you different questions. I'm not from here, so I actually don't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I assume it was the restaurant, and then the Jack in the Box like pop up.
Yeah.
That came first. That's very ancient.
Right.
Yeah.
He said that. She says that's ancient. I had no idea. Well, I grew up on it.
Yeah.
He was gonna ask this question, and I was like, okay.
Listen. I mean,
looked it up.
Look, she's acting like an old person. I'm born in '74. I'm 46 years old. You can call me a kid. It's okay.
Nice.
But we played with that, right? And, it played a little song and the thing popped up. And then next thing you know, you got this business called Jack in the Box. How do you guys get the name if we called this the Jack in the Box? I don't know.
And our early speakers, where you would come up, because one of the first people with the drive-through and the speakers, it was actually a Jack out of a box. And you saw the Jack out there.
That's cool.
That's cool.
It's funny. We built a Jack in the Box restaurant, I guess, in some city, and it was like in their Chinatown portion. So they had this great idea to translate Jack in the Box and put it on the outside of the restaurant, and I guess it would be Mandarin or whatever. And so people were walking by, and they kept looking at it and looking at it. So finally, it took us a while. We got said, What's up with the why are people pointing at that? And they said, well, when you translate Jack in the Box, whatever it was, Mandarin, you would think Jack in the Box, but the way you translate it was like Jack stuck in a box. Oh. So looking like Jack stuck in a box, like like trapped in a box.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're like, what an odd name! Like there's a person trapped in a box, and so we ended up taking those letters down. Okay. That wasn't, that didn't go as well.
Some people probably tattoo that on their body and then call it strength or loyalty.
Yeah, I looked up the toy. And so Jack in the Box, the restaurant, started in 1951. The toy, legend has it. I didn't do a lot of research, so I'm just going to say legend has it.
Legend has it.
It was in the 1500s when a German clockworker named Klaus
made
it for a local prince. It was a spring-activated toy.
Yeah. The technology was there back then, so you could do
that.
that.
Makes sense. Yeah, I like it.
It's been around a little while.
The song. I mean, for a kid. The kid's going to love that anytime. You get a baby. You make a baby. And don't let me explain how.
Right.
And then you just twist and twist. You play the song, and then all of a sudden the thing pops up. Kids love it. Kids going to automatically smile. It's like playing hide and go seek with them, man. I'm telling you, I know it.
There is a viral video going around right now of like Jack in the Box of parents showing their kids.
Oh, really?
And it's hilarious because some of them love it. But the ones that don't love it,
they're terrified, right?
It's so horribly funny.
Well, maybe it could be the clown face. I don't know.
I think it's the surprise.
Actually, if you don't know. Yeah.
Anyway.
So something else that, let's say, a stigma might be attached to is the term fast food. Now, I understand. I hear you calling it a restaurant, and obviously it is. But is there a stigma there? How do you deal with that stigma? Or is it, do you have issues with being called fast food?
Well, I think technically they don't want to be called fast food.
Okay.
But I'm a little different. I'll be honest with you. There's pros and cons on this. When you look at a Jack in the Box or many of these restaurants, unfortunately, and this is getting a little deep, for most people who don't have a lot of income, it is the cheapest way to get your calories that you need for the day. So taking it away from fast food, it's really the health benefit of it. And unfortunately, a lot of people use fast food, Jack in the Box, other brands, because it's the cheapest way to eat. When you have a $5.99 or $4.99 combo, you have the drink, the fry, and the sandwich, you're good. You know, that might be the best meal you have for several days, quite honestly.
Sure.
So when you talk about fast food, I think the difference of that is two things now. We need to say stigma. COVID has changed a lot of that, because if you notice, people are more afraid to get out of their cars. So part of the reason our transactions, many of the fast food restaurants, for drive-thru, our transactions are down, but the average checks are bigger. People are afraid to go to a traditional restaurant. They feel a lot more comfortable. You know, you can just stick the card in yourself, you hand me the bag, and it's been proven that you're really not getting COVID from a bag of food. It's more the human transmission. So that stigma, if there was one, is off for that part of it. A lot more people feel safer coming to us than, say, sitting down in a restaurant or even sitting outside at a restaurant.
Sure.
So are they buying more and then just heating some of it up later, get a lunch and a dinner at the same time? You're saying that the check is bigger.
I think a lot of times, whether you're working in an office and somebody goes out to buy it for 4 people, where they might have went down to sit down at a traditional restaurant or casual dining. But the other piece of the fast food is really that stigma that, you know, if you are a true connoisseur of food, you can make a better hamburger at home out of grass-fed beef with Wagyu, whatever, you know, right? So I think that's for most of our food, it's about the speed. When people come to a Jack in the Box, they want quality food, believe it or not, friendliness. They want, if you're rude to them, but the food tastes great, they don't want to come back. So it's really that experience. I want to pay you an amount of money, get good quality food, and it's going to be served with a smile, and you're going to be nice. And I would tell you, because I work front counter a lot or drive-through, whenever we get busy, and I'm not going to lie, whoever's working front counter, I bump them because that's my best, and I make the least amount of mistakes there. So I work register, and I can do it any day, anywhere. But that interaction, like, you start to know, like, the same people come back almost daily or weekly. So even me working limited times, I have customers who know me now. I'm like, hey, what's the owner working doing the register? So hopefully I answered your question with that. But yeah.
No, I like it.
Yeah.
But you know, so you do tell them that you're the owner. You're up at the counter telling them, hey, I'm the boss here.
Secret, I actually lie to most of them. I tell them it's my first day.
Oh, wow.
All the time. I always say it's first day.
He's good at this.
I've gotten so many compliments. But what happens, I would tell you probably 1 out of 8, because there's always my picture there with the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin. They're always like, that's you, right? And I'm like, wow, how'd you? He's like, you can tell that's you. So literally 1 out of 5, 1 out of 10, whatever that number is, a lot of people know that you're the owner because that's you in the picture.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's cool.
So earlier you mentioned that you have people coming in to make sure that you're staying on brand.
Yes.
And I just wonder about the responsibility. When you buy into a franchise, part of the reason is because you're buying into a known brand. That's part of the benefit.
Right.
But that's got to be a lot of pressure. You're keeping up that brand. You have to follow their
It's a great
stigma.
question.
So what's that like?
My answer is different than some. We do a good job. So we constantly invest and we keep it. So I'm very proud, and I'll look into if you come to my restaurant today, you will have a very nice experience. We fix everything. I'm actually changing part of how I do my job. Like, to save money, like, we laid mulch. Like, some guy won like $2,800. The mulch costs like $400 or $500. And me and my district manager, I have a guy, Arturo, who runs our 7 restaurants. He's been around 35 years at Jack in the Box. So we'll do the mulch ourselves and save like $2,000. So we painted some of our lobbies. We'll stay up to like 3 a.m. and go paint the restaurant. So we take a lot of pride that we look good. So to answer your question, are we nervous about it? And in the review, there's always things that could be better. But if you're going to fix them, it's not that big of a deal. If you were a franchisee who didn't want to invest the money or the time, and whatever you tell me I have to do, I don't want to do it. It could be my old job, that's part of what I hated, my old job. I'd have to fly in and be like, well, you owe Jack in the Box $1 million. We need to talk about that. Or you've had restaurants shut down. We got to talk about what's the plan? What are we going to do to make this better, meet brand standard? I was the guy who had, which is why that wasn't always a fun job. But if you're actually going to do the job and you're going to do your best, it's not that big of a deal. Okay. I love seeing our corporate reps. So we have our food safeties for right now are announced because of COVID. So every time we have one, I go and meet the guy and I'll walk around and see what's going on and tell him, like, we have you have tile in the kitchen. And in one of my restaurants, some of the grout in between the tiles is worn down. On the health department and our food safety, you lose a point because you can get. But to get the grout and do all that, it takes. I was like, dude, I'm going to lose that point. We're not, nobody. We're fine with the little bit of grout missing right there. So the last 3 health departments, especially, we have like hundreds on them. So I like going to see them because we're going to do the right thing. And that, if you're going to be a franchisee, I think if I could give you one piece of advice, if you're trying to be your own thing, then you need to put Shane's Burgers on there. If you actually are going to buy into a franchisee, you got to be willing to do what they say. And there are times, even though I'm seen, because I was recently corporate, most franchisees see me as a Jack in the Box guy. I'm very loyal to the brand. If you tell me to do it, even if I don't agree, I'm going to do it. Yeah. There are times they tell you should be doing this or that, and I'm not excited. I don't agree with the decision. But you bought into the franchise.
Yeah.
In my mind, some of this, we can try and coach you on how to make it better, but it's really not a discussion.
It's not Shane's Burgers.
Okay.
So,
I like that answer. It's easy to do, but you got to do it.
But that's tough, though. I mean, even legally, right? I mean, because there are ramifications for things like, and we appreciate you being here, but even doing something like this, and where you're talking about the brand,
right?
And the last thing they want you to do is disparage the brand. And so, just for our listeners, that's one of the things that they have to consider, because if you want to. If you don't come up with your idea, but you want to start a business, but then you want to buy a franchise, be sure, because that there are ramifications to the thing, how you represent that franchise. You can't just go off and do it your own way.
Yeah, no. They look at procedures, times, temperatures, quality. Like in our brand, as with many brands, you actually have to buy all your food from the approved vendor. So one person delivers all the food to the same Jack in the Boxes. And Jack in the Box actually sources all the food. And then they have quality control that goes out to the lettuce plant, to the beef plant. To that point, you don't actually have a lot of choices in how you're going to make the changes. Mm-hmm. Really, where you make the changes is the stuff I talked about, how you operate it, the people, how you treat the people, how you train the people, retain. Mm-hmm. If I could brag on one thing, actually, so every month, I meet with my restaurant managers. We get our profit and loss statements, and I sit down for an hour. If you were my manager, we'd sit for an hour or two every month and talk about the business and the people and walk through the numbers. Every month for 3 years, I only missed it one time. So every month we sit down and we go through that. We talk about the people, and I was going through it. Average restaurant turnover for a fast food restaurant manager is about 30 to 40% a year. So if you have 10 restaurants, every year 3 or 4 managers will quit or fired or will leave, whatever that is. Last year we had 0. And the 2 years before that, I was doing the math with one of the managers that we had 2 of them today I did before I came here. We're drinking wine because it's 6 o'clock at night. We had 2. I had 2 before I came here, and my first 2 years we averaged 21%. We had 0, so I'm at like 14% turnover for 3 years, when normally it should be 30, 40 on average. So people just aren't quitting. And when you're a franchise in any business, but if you have good people and no one quits. So we're very proud of that. So when you say what you can do, it is having the right people, treating them right with respect, training them, having a presence. I'm very proud that I have 200 employees. And my district manager will tell you, one of my pet peeves is when I walk in, if I don't know somebody and they say they've been here more than 3 or 4 weeks, I feel horrible. Like, how have you been here a month and I've never met you? And it's not like we're going to be besties, but I should at least know your name.
Absolutely.
Out of the 200, I probably know 150, 160 their story. Like, are you married? Do you have kids? Where are you from? How long have you worked at Jack in the Box? What do you want to be when you grow up? And that matters a lot to me. And I think if you're going to have any business, there's a lot of, you can be franchised, you can do it, but it's the people. When you have the right people and you treat them right, you're going to be a superstar.
Yeah. And you know what? That's kind of another thing that I wanted to talk about too, right? Because when you're starting a business or when you're running a business, you got your employees, right? Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of us, and again, excuse the term fast food, but a lot of people start off like that's kind of their first job.
My first job.
Right. Fast food. My first job, Togo's. Yeah. It's just making sandwiches. One of the top 16 in the country, trust me. In speed, just speed. I won't say the sandwiches were good.
Did you get fired, though?
I was just
That's
fast.
the question.
Yeah.
Did you get fired?
I don't remember.
Okay.
But so how do you maintain responsibility and maturity for, you're talking about these young people, like I said, their first job, their first time, trying to be responsible, trying to please a manager. But then again, at the same time saying, maybe I'll take a little bit out of the register. Maybe I'll, whatever the situation may be or their approach to it. It's the fact that they're young, right? What do you do with when that's the kind of franchise you bought into, and those are the kind of people that you hire?
Well, Jack in the Box is different than some other brands. I can't say this is true of every brand out there. What's interesting about Jack, especially here, my average, I just tracked this the other day too because we did pay raises, so I was able to see 63% of my 200 employees have been with me 2 years or longer. So when we talk about turnover of all the hourlies, there are, say we hire a cashier for daytime. That cashier may quit and we hire another one 5 times in 1 year. So there's a lot of turnover there. But the core crew, my average age of my employees is something like 31. I have a bunch of 30 and 40-year-olds.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't surprise me.
Really? Why?
I'm in that age group.
Yeah.
And I know where my friends are at. I know where my community is at. And
really?
those are the jobs we're doing.
That's interesting. I mean, is it because of, COVID? Is it because unemployment rate is so high now that, people are, going, approaching you for a job?
In my 7 restaurants, I think the lowest I have, and again, I bought these 3 years ago, but the lowest I have is one restaurant that has 4 employees with 10 years or longer with Jack in the Box. And I think I have one restaurant with 14 employees with 10 years or longer with Jack in the Box.
Yeah.
So we have literally 30 employees that have over 20 years with Jack in the Box across my restaurants. But back to those young people. It can be, so I just left Spring Valley. I'll give a shout out to Monte Vista High School.
Okay.
We have like 6 of their students working there.
Okay.
And when you talk about COVID, because they're online, they're coming back to class, I think, 1 day a week. But during COVID and in the summer, they'll work 30, 40 hours. Yeah. And they're some of our best employees. They're killing it, man. Right. One of them were actually, I won't say her name because I think she's still a minor, but when she turns 18, we're actually making her an hourly manager, and she'll get the minimum plus $1, what we do starting for an hourly. So at 18, she'll be making, what is that, $15 an hour, running a shift at Jack in the Box.
Ups and downs to be an hourly manager.
She's saving for college. She looked at a couple colleges out of state, but she was trying to, the last year, she's literally worked 40 to 45 hours a week trying to save up money for college. And that's that dream, right? When you talk about how you make it, quite frankly, for a fast food, when you talk about the negative, it can be a dead-end job. And maybe it's not for everybody. One of the things at Jack in the Box is we're pretty stable. So a lot of our employees, when I tell you they're 30 or 40, we're in San Diego, man. And for all those out there who know it's tough to make it here, when you have to have 2 jobs or sometimes 3 jobs, what's nice is a number of my restaurants, and not just me, a number of restaurants across the city, across different brands, you can say, hey, you're going to work these 4 days and you'll work this set hour so you can get a second job. And because you can't, be fighting what my hours are with the 2 jobs. So the stability, I think, is what has kept a lot of people. And plus, it's how you treat them. Like, we give you a free meal every time you work at our Jack. Not everybody does that. Not every brand. We just do that. Just to, how we're going to treat you. So I just gave a long answer, but hopefully
that's all right.
I
but speaking of meals, though, why are the tacos so popular?
I know.
North County Daily Star is the leading source for news and community information. There are 650,000 residents along the 78 corridor in 5 unique cities that share the region, North County, San Diego. We work and play in these cities, so we are all interested in what happens in our common region. There is no cost to subscribe, and it is continuously updated. So look for us on your mobile device or computer at ncdailystar.com.
I know. And that's real meat. I will tell you that.
There you go.
Is that where you start?
Let's get that out of the way.
It starts with, that's how you make them good. You use real meat.
I will tell you one secret. If you work at Jack in the Box, there's one thing you dread, and it's that person walks in and they have like a handful of dollars and they're counting. They're like, I'll have 30 tacos, and you got to drop we drop them 6 or 8 at a time. So you're dropping them, making them, and literally everything stops for like 5-10 minutes while you're making those 30. And then if somebody comes in behind them, and this has happened, like I'll have 40 tacos. They're not even together, so all of a sudden you got like 70 tacos in like 10 minutes. It's rough. That for a Jack in the Box, it's a little rough for us.
But people love the tacos.
They love the tacos.
You gotta have the tacos.
They call it, the term they use is attachment rate. So when you buy something at Jack in the Box, what is the percentage of times you add this to it, like a fry or a Coke? Our attachment rate, if you come into a Jack in the Box and buy a lunch or dinner, 72% of the time that order has a taco with it.
Wow. Yeah, we used to call them bundles in the cellular community. Yeah.
And maybe it's went down a little bit during the pandemic, but a lot of times if somebody comes in and buys whatever, they add tacos to the order.
Yeah. Well.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about your philanthropic work, your nonprofits, where you started, where you are now. What was it? The Junior Achievement is what you started with.
Yeah, so it's funny. So Junior Achievement is a national charity, and you can actually volunteer, and they teach financial literacy. And I love Junior Achievement. And so I'm here, and our chief legal officer, we're in Gilroy, California, 2:00 doing unannounced night shops. And he's talking about all these charities he's in. He said, I'm on the board of Junior Achievement San Diego, but my heart's not in it. I can't do it. And I said, I love Junior Achievement. I said, I have taught schools as a volunteer in Ohio, New York, and Pennsylvania. I've been in 3 different states every time I moved to a state, and I actually did California too. So I said, I love this charity. I've been a volunteer. He's like, do you want my seat on the board? And it's usually not that easy. But Jack in the Box gives a significant amount. We really support Junior Achievement. In fact, Junior Achievement has this thing called BizTown. So if you're a 5th grader who's grown up, or you have a 5th grader in San Diego, they have this BizTown where for a day you get a job and you get paid, and you can go to other businesses and spend the money. And we actually have a Jack in the Box with the register system at the BizTown, and kids always want to work and be CEO there and all that kind of stuff. My daughter wanted to be the newscaster, so she was the newscaster that day on the TV. She didn't work at Jack when she was in 5th grade. So we have that. So I always loved that, and I was on the board for about 5 years there, really representing Jack in the Box Corporation. And when I became a franchisee, I decided to take a break because, again, I'm working like 70 hours. It's crazy. And I met this charity. They asked for a donation, and Homestart. And really what Homestart does, and it's different. When you have a Junior Achievement, there's a national board, and the resources are just tremendous. Homestart is a locally grown, only here in San Diego, and really we have several things we do now, but I'll just boil it down to the core, is helping homeless mothers with children. We also have a thrift boutique that employs some of those homeless mothers, and we have a candle studio, and we sell the candles, and some of the homeless mothers help with that too. And we help them housing. So we have, we're doing a program right now, The Miracle on 34th Street. It's on 34th Street, and we just bought a number of units, and we're renovating them. And so once they're renovated, we'll have women who apply who are in a bad situation with children, and we'll allow them to live there for a year or two. We work it out because it can't be into perpetuity. You can stay here, but it's not for a month or two. This is a chance for you to get on your feet, to save money. And when I heard that story, I'm all in. Anything to help the children. And recently, because we have such an infrastructure, with the CARES Act that came through in La Mesa, for example, they had vouchers that they would help you with your rent. And it came through CARES, and they didn't have anybody who could do it, so they came to Homestart, and we actually had our volunteers process. And this is the sad part. If there were like 100 vouchers we had for your rent, there was something like 5,000 people applied, whatever that number is. But it's a big ratio there.
Sure.
So it's sad because a lot of people out there are hurting right now.
Turned away,
but I'm proud that our charity was able to help. By our, I mean Homestart. I'm on the board. So when you're on the board, you donate money. You do things like be on a podcast. We talk about the charity. And then for a smaller charity, what's the difference is time. I probably donate a lot of time to this charity for different things.
It's more important than a lot. It's more important than money at times, for some of these organizations.
And it's funny. They always talk about either your money, your time, or your talent. When you deal with the charities, they talk about you can give 3 things. So maybe if you're just a volunteer and you volunteer 50 hours, you don't have to be special. You're just helping. They need the person.
Right.
Talent. There have been a number of times where they'll have very wealthy donors, but they want to talk to board members. See, are you in it? What do you think? So I've had to go out and meet and have, it's funny, you're having lunch and you're talking to somebody who has way more money than the 3 of us ever combined will have. So that's fun.
Hey, and you I'm working on it.
Yeah. Well, we'll start on your side. We'll start on your side of the table.
Well, it's odd. As a franchisee, they assume you're rich. And I had, when I worked, I had my own car and I had a 2008 Mercedes. So I'm a franchisee. 6 months in, my wife had a 2012 Toyota Sienna minivan, and she wanted a new car. And she's like, do you want? I said, I'll take the minivan. And so I pull up the next day to one of my restaurants, and my wife got the new car. I took her car, and the manager's like, can I talk to you? I'm like, yeah, what's up? She's like, is something wrong?
Oh, no.
And I was like, no, why? She's like, we were driving a Mercedes, and now you're driving a Toyota. Yeah. Like, do we have money for payroll? Like, they're literally legit wondering, like, are we going to go out of business? And so, yeah, as a franchisee, you don't always, but eventually, if you do the right things, yes, you will become very rich, right? Any business you do that with.
Sure.
So.
Tell us, so anything else that you want to say about the business, the organizations as we wrap up? I want to make sure that we get all of that in there. We love the work that you do with the community. And you know, what's really important too, from what you just said, is that you stepped out there to do that, because I'm sure Jack in the Box puts money back into the community. But we're not just talking about Jack in the Box. We're talking about you, the business owner, stepping out on your own and making sure that you contribute as well. So if there's anything more that you want to say about that.
I'll say three things. One of the things I like about Jack in the Box is it's funny because while I can say I have stepped out and done it, literally almost all the franchisees, one of the things with our brand, we're a smaller brand, as I mentioned before, and it's very hands-on. Literally, if their other franchisees are here, they like, what about me? What about so many franchisees give back to the community. I'm very proud of it. And there have been times, so we had the fires that were here a few months ago. So I called Jack in the Box. We have a foundation. We help a ton of charities. And I said, hey, I want to feed the firefighters. And I'm going to do it. And for nobody, I'll say this now, but for Christmas Day, I did volunteer and fed 400 homeless at the breakfast at the convention center. We just, it was sort of rough. You had to get up at 4 o'clock on Christmas Day, and we made it. My son and daughter helped with our crew. But we did that, and I just lost my train of thought.
You were telling us three things.
Oh, firefighters. So I volunteered to feed some firefighters because we did the homeless, and they said they don't need it here, but they need it in LA. So actually 2 franchisees from LA fed like 1,000 people over like a day or two period. Even though I started with my commitment down here, they said, oh, we'll do it. If it's up here, we'll do it instead of Shane doing it in San Diego. So franchisees at Jack, they do a nice job, and a lot of brands, they do too. If you're going to be in the community, you got to give back to the community.
Absolutely.
I think if you're going to ask me, the other 2 things would be, if you're thinking about getting into business and you're young and you're an entrepreneur and all that, I'd say there's a couple of things you got to do first.
Please.
I'm big on education. It's very hard. I'm telling you, I see people who have been in the business a long time and they fail at being franchisees. Again, that was my job, to help them exit the business when they fail. There's just so much to know. The financials, the laws, the people, how to run a business. So if you're saying, I want to be rich one day, I would tell you first step is you got to get your education. It is very difficult to drop out of high school or never get a college degree, but expect that you're going to run a 10, 20 million. It happens. It happens a lot. But if you're going to write a book and you look at the chapters in the book, the chapters will be a lot more successful as you get that education. I truly believe in that.
Speaking my language.
Yeah. You're there too?
Absolutely.
I'm all over this.
She's an educator.
The last thing, and this is just a Shane Paul thing, I don't think everybody has to do this. I believe in work ethic. So I'll say it all day, every day. I work very hard. If you're going to be an entrepreneur and you think you're going to do well, don't think it's 20 hours a week or I'm going to start making money and I can go on vacation. It's a lot of work. So if you're not willing to work hard, if you don't want to get the education and you don't want to maybe take the bad job to get the great job, there's other fields for you potentially, because just assuming you're going to be a success, you're probably going to be very disappointed.
Absolutely.
That's
There you
what I think.
go.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's great advice, not to have your expectations too high. At the same time, let's be clear, there is some freedom and control there. There is an upside once you have made it there.
You got to work for it.
You got to work for it. And the work ethic is what it's all about. I'm glad we had the opportunity to sit down with you, Shane.
Yeah.
This was awesome, man. I mean, this was like a class, right?
I feel good.
I mean, yeah, it was like, we should have paid for this one.
I feel like it's been 15 minutes. I just went by.
It did. It really did.
It was informative, inspiring, and a very important conversation. Thank you for expanding our vision and your work with our country, as well as your work with our future CEOs, franchise owners, entrepreneurs, and inventors. Let's give some contact information.
Absolutely.
Please.
So Shane obviously works with Jack in the Box, frequent any
Jack.
Jack in the Box.
We just call him
With
Jack.
Jack. Let's hang out with Jack. But also importantly, Shane is with the Home Start nonprofit. So if you can go to homestart.org, check out what they do as a charity, maybe volunteer or donate.
And if I can also say, I'm on LinkedIn. So if you ever have any follow-up questions, you can always hit me up on LinkedIn and I'll answer. People hit me up all the time and I'll try and help. Anything I can do to help.
Beautiful.
Just don't ask for money.
Shane, this was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Love it.
Have a good one, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, man. Thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in to the Same Business, Different Day podcast. Special thanks to StarFox Media for video production and James Russell for music production. Please like and subscribe to the Same Business, Different Day podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Tune in next week for an all-new episode.
Same business, different day.